Hello and welcome to the Compassion Curve for Early Childhood Educators and Providers. This webinar is part one of a two-part series that focuses on supporting those who care for the very youngest and most vulnerable in our community. Take these next 15 minutes to focus on yourself and your well-being. St. A is happy to provide these webinars in partnership with the Milwaukee Civic Response Team and 4C for Children. I'm Sarah Daniel, the Vice President of Educational Services for St. A. The mission of St. A is to facilitate equity, learning, healing, and wellness by restoring connections that help children and families thrive. St. A is a human services organization that strives to address the impact of trauma, prevent adversity, and promote resilience. We are headquartered at 89th and Capitol Drive in Milwaukee. The learning objectives for this series are listed here. In this session, we will learn to understand the difference between positive, tolerable, and toxic stress. We will also begin to understand compassion fatigue and its impact. The third objective is to understand the stress response and its impact on the brain and body. And finally, we will cover some strategies to support your well-being. I'd like to begin this session with a brief grounding activity to get us focused. You will need a piece of paper and a pen. Feel free to pause this webinar if you need to go get those items. Now I want you to focus inward on your breath. Block out all distractions and bring your attention to just your immediate surroundings. Where are you sitting while you're watching this webinar? And I want you to look around your surroundings and on the piece of paper, write down 5 things that you see. What are the things that you see in your environment? Write them down. Now take a deep breath and write down 4 things that you can feel. Is it the chair you're sitting in, the pen you're holding, maybe even the surface of your table, your skin, your hair? And go ahead and touch those things and then write down the 4 things you can feel. Now take a deep breath and let's reflect on 3 things that you can hear right now. Are there cars driving by? Birds in the background? Write down those 3 things. Now take a deep breath and write down 2 things that you can smell right now. Maybe you're having your morning coffee or some other beverage. Write down 2 things you can smell. And finally, take a deep breath and write down 1 thing that you can taste right now. Thank you to those of you who engaged in that activity. I hope that gave us a little moment to just center in and focus on the here and now for even a brief period of time. Activities like the one in the previous slide are things that we can use to help us cope with stress, to help us think about there's no question that there's currently a high level of stress due to what's going on in our world. And whether you have fear right now about getting sick, financial hardships, worrying about job loss, or there's been job loss in your family. Maybe you're feeling isolated and your support system is not available to you because of quarantines. Or maybe you are feeling a lack of personal space because virtual learning is happening and people are working at home and your space feels suddenly overcrowded and confining. Maybe you feel frustration, fear, anger about social injustice and racism. or maybe you're just feeling overwhelmed, helpless, or hopeless. These are common feelings that are going on right here, and I want to spend a little time talking about kind of where those feelings are coming from and how we can recognize them and respond. When we start to think about stress that we've experienced or are currently experiencing, we can categorize it in 3 different ways. Stress can be positive. It can be something that causes a brief elevation in our heart rate, but helps us to rise to a challenge or to overcome an obstacle. Positive stress can result when good things are happening in our lives. We're planning a wedding or a move or a new job. We're excited or happy, but stress is still part of the experience. We can also experience tolerable stress. This is when something more negative or serious happens in our lives, but we're able to connect with others who provide a supportive relationship that buffers the effects of this stress. Examples could be a good friend supporting you through a loss of an important relationship, or a spouse or a partner helping you to deal with the death of a friend or family member. It's not that the events aren't bad, it's just that we are able to overcome them with support. Toxic stress is when the stress response activation is prolonged and there are no protective relationships to buffer its effect. Think about the experiences that you've had in your lifetime, particularly in the past several months. Has the stress you've experienced been positive, tolerable, or toxic? Feel free to pause the webinar to think more about this. Compassion fatigue can also occur for those of us in professions where we care for others. Compassion fatigue can include emotional, physical, or spiritual distress that can be associated when people provide care for others who are also experiencing significant emotional or physical suffering. This experience can make us feel physically and mentally tired, overwhelmed, or burdened. We might have difficulty concentrating or making decisions when we are in this state. We might also feel frustrated and short-tempered. Pause the webcast to consider if you are experiencing this right now. Given the state of the pandemic and other stressors in our world and in our work right now, it would be normal for many people to feel this way, especially those who care for others. In the next few slides, we will discuss why this happens and provide some ideas about what can help. Additional strategies will be shared in part 2 of this webinar series. So how does the brain and body respond when under stress or threat? The brain is designed to mobilize systems of the body to aid in survival. If a threat is perceived to your body, it may respond by releasing stress hormones such as cortisol and adrenaline. Fight or flight can kick in. Your breathing and heartbeat may speed up, your muscles may tense, and blood may be pumped to your arms and legs to allow you to move more quickly to fight off or run away from a threat. However, if the danger is perceived to be overwhelming and inescapable, your body may respond with a freeze response. Your heart rate and breathing may slow down to preserve resources, sending blood to your vital organs. You may experience feelings of detachment from the event, and your memory and awareness are dulled as you focus internally, not externally. When the stress response is activated, it becomes the primary focus of the brain. The higher thinking parts of the brain, in charge of logical thinking and planning, become less engaged as the lower systems of the brain that are in charge of survival take over. Pause the webinar to think a little bit about how your brain and body responds to stress and threat. Take a look at this list and consider what you have seen in your friends, family members, co-workers, and in yourself. Have you seen the inability to empathize or put yourself in another's shoes? Have you found yourself easily overwhelmed or unable to solve problems in your life? Do you find yourself numbing out by binge watching TV, playing games on your phone, or drinking alcohol? These are more dissociative ways that our body copes with stress, in which we either freeze or are unable to act to make decisions, or engage in mental flight or checking out. Or perhaps you've seen a more hypervigilant response in which you fight or flee. You feel anger, rage, guilt, fear, and find yourself complaining and blaming. Please consider that each one of these are reactions to stress. This is not to say that this provides an excuse for bad behavior, but perhaps gives us a window into understanding our own behavior and the behavior of others, and an opportunity to give each other a little forgiveness, a little support. To learn more about this, please see the link below this webinar to watch an optional 20-minute video by Laura Vandernoot-Lipsky, the author of Trauma Stewardship, where she explains these responses to stress and secondary trauma. If you are experiencing any of the things discussed in these slides, please don't hesitate to reach out for support. Seek out positive relationships in your life. Find yourself someone in your life that empathizes with you, but is also able to move you towards problem solving and not just simply engaging in venting sessions where both participants feel worse. Engage in virtual community, groups, or a virtual congregation. Have dinner with a friend virtually in which you cook and eat the same foods over a virtual platform. Make a commitment to prioritize relationship and connection. And finally, seek out counseling services or an employee assistance program to talk to someone trained to provide help with problem solving and guidance on how to deal with whatever challenges you may be facing right now. Make a commitment to use strategies that will increase your brain's ability to regulate during stress. These could include singing, dancing, running, walking, or exercising, petting a dog or a cat, spending time in nature, writing or journaling, reading a book or listening to a book or podcast, listening to music that's uplifting and positive, watching a comedy, or enjoying a warm cup of coffee or tea. Commit to including these regulation strategies in your life and in your daily routine. More strategies will be shared in part 2 of this series. Many mental health providers have both in-person and online sessions available, and many insurance companies have temporarily waived deductibles for telehealth services. There are many resources in the community. CNA's link for services is listed below this webinar. Our therapists specialize in supporting educators and those in the helping profession. Here are some next steps. If you are an early care provider or educator in any of the following zip codes, 53204, 53206, 53209, 53210, 53212, 53215, 53216, and 53218, you are eligible to attend a 4-hour training on the 7 essential ingredients of trauma-informed early care at no charge. Please click the link below this webinar to register for this training taking place November 30th and December 3rd from 6:30 to 8:30, or you may choose December 7th and 10th from 6:30 to 8:30. Tools and resources to use in your early care setting will be shared. Seats are limited, so please register today. To view part 2 of this self-paced webinar, please return to the site where you accessed Compassion Curve Part 1. And finally, to receive continuing education credit for this webinar, please click the link below and complete the survey. Thank you so much, and I look forward to future trainings.